Hello, beautiful people. I am Oliver Perrin, joined by Mr. Tim Rudisil today for an episode of CHAINSMOKE coming at you live. And the subject of our discussion will be post-election shenanigans, the sorts of things that we may see coming down the pike here immediately following the upcoming election, in that period of time between the election and Trump taking office again. Before we
the way you say that, Ollie.
Well, I mean, what's not to like about me in every respect? Please don't answer. Before we get to that, though, I'm going to go through my normal boilerplate shilling and all the rest. But I do want to figure out whether or not the audio and video is coming through well for everybody. So please do let me know. I got my eye on the chat here. There is a short delay. So please let me know, folks, whether or not the audio and the video are acceptable for everyone. I see that H. Grimes is saying, "How is Ollie late for his own shit?" According to my clock, we rolled in right at 6 o'clock as we are supposed to. So I don't know what you people are calling about. All right, well, then we're good to go. Thank you, everybody, for being in the house. Good to see all of you. Thank you for joining us. Before we get started, please do follow this channel, Semiagog, as well as A Safer Space. You can do that on YouTube and on BitChute. Please do check, because I had the usual thing, where I go up 30 subscribers, and then, within the following 24 hours, I go down 25, the usual things, 2 step forwards, 1 step back with YouTube's repressive algorithms. So please do check to make sure that you are subscribed. There's also Minds, there is Gab, there's Parler, there is Twitter, where I'm active. I encourage you to follow me there. For those who wish to support the channel, there is both GoFundMe and Subscribestar. For those who wish to send me things that are both legal and moral, including, as Tim would point out, folding money, there is Post Office Box 16006, Atlanta, Georgia, 30316. I do want to say I'm expecting a princely gift in the form of a book. I have not been able to get up there to the P.O. Box when there were staff in there, because I have a small P.O. Box. They leave a little slip for me. So I'm looking forward to getting a book. I know someone sent me one. I just wanted to let them know that I have not yet been able to retrieve it, or I would be crowing and showing it to everyone. I forgot my books. Science fiction, Vinculum, set in a dystopian future. A tale of a book thief in the year 2076. You can pick this up on Amazon under the name Oliver Perrin. It's called Vinculum. It's sort of a cyberpunk dystopian future, whatever. And then there are my poems collected in this volume, Cinders from the Bloomery of Youth, under the name Oliver Timken Perrin. You can find that on Amazon as well. I do encourage you to pick up copies for yourself and to leave reviews on Amazon, positive ones, I do hope. And with that out of the way, the shilling is done. So, Tim, how are you, sir?
I'm well. How about yourself?
Still living and breathing. That's where all the trouble starts.
Matter of fact, it is.
Well, I have a topic for you, and I'm hoping you'd be willing to roll through this with me, because it involves a number of possibilities that you have yourself seen here at various points, or suggested as possibilities, and it looks like we're in a situation where shit might just be happening. One of them that stands out quite distinctly is your talk about how Biden is going to, for whatever reason you didn't specify at the time, pull out sometime in the range of time where he's going to be debating, and that your belief was that Hillary Clinton either would come in after him, or sure does think she's going to come in after him, being able to ride in on I guess whatever the equivalent for her is of a white horse. I guess, wearing a pantsuit resplendent with galloon and epaulettes and all the rest. Now, I still don't know that that's going to happen. my view on it is that it would create so much chaos and confusion that how would you even be able to indicate a winner? I get the impression that I don't know. Yeah, but your point is, however, or I've heard it coming from you, that perhaps so much confusion that no one can tell up from down is what they want, and hopefully we'll get to that. Let me go ahead and lay the general picture out, though, and you can begin to walk us through what you think will happen. So, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm really after here is I think that we're moving up on this window from the point at which the votes have been cast, presumably, up through the inauguration or the beginning of the next term. And that specific window is what interests me. You know, we've thought quite a bit about what would happen with the period running up to the election. We've looked at things like the next 4 years, but for this discussion, it's really this window of time where it seems as though any number of aspects of the plan will come together. You know, the old A-Team line, you know, I love it when a plan comes together. And there's a lot there that is sitting there, I think, in potential. One of these things is the aspect of casting doubt on the election in general, which seems for quite some time to have been part of the strategy of the people behind Clinton, the Chinese, the blue commies, your Obama people, your Biden people, and there are also other things, you know, that I pointed out in the past, like the business of why are they pushing so hard to gin up fake votes in California. As I pointed out, I think that's so that they will be able to point to a number in terms of the popular vote that shows that, well, maybe Trump won the Electoral College, but the popular vote was again Biden's, as it was with Hillary. And once again, we've seen there's a key problem with our system. So we've got to ditch the whole idea of the Electoral College and go with a direct democracy, straight, pure democracy.
Absolutely.
Combined with things like packing the Supreme Court and, making Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico states and all sorts of other excitement that they have in store for us. But the big thing going on here, I think, that sets the stage for this. I won't go on too long, Tim, and ladies and gentlemen.
Right. Take your time, old son. Take your time.
Bear with me. I've got to set the stage. We poor players strut and fret across the stage, but it must be set in anticipation of what we're going to talk about. Well, you know, there are a lot of people who think, for example, that Trump is just the other side of the coin. It's the usual, three shells. One of them has a P under it, and everyone's supposed to be kept busy looking around. That this is just the same old business as usual, where they have a so-called democratic or, a liberal regime followed by a so-called conservative one, Republican, and that they just keep tackling the same points from two different directions. I have seen enough for myself to be convinced that Trump, whatever his failings, and there are many, there's something more than that going on here. There is a real power struggle, and people who have enjoyed dominance via this vehicle of two parties that are really just one. They're under threat, and the people who have been in charge, who've taken power and lost it perhaps earlier, but have been solidly pretty much in charge, maybe with a hiccup around Kennedy, since the time of well, let's not add the hiccup from Kennedy. Let's just say start from LBJ, right? That there's been a pretty solid block of power that maybe had some hiccups in between, but have been enjoying themselves certainly since the period of Clinton, the first. They're under threat, and all sorts of international relationships and arrangements are under threat at this time, and they've got their backs up against the wall. And if that's the case, so I'm laying the assumption out up front, then the Trump side of things, the coalition that he is the surfaced aspect of, they need big drama. They need really big drama.
Really big.
In order to lock this in and make it so that the general public can't hide their heads in the sand, even with this business of the control over the media and the constant gaslighting and bullshit and disinformation, misinformation, propaganda, etc. They need something big. Now, we've talked about a number of times the way in which any number of these potential ways that it could go. We've been hanging fire on it, seemingly. It's like, why the hell won't he do anything with it? Why the hell is yet again something not happened with Durham? Why Epstein got killed and then it ended up being, committed suicide? It's sheer speculation, ladies and gentlemen. Why on earth has he not, the Imran Awan stuff with, what's her name? That horrific curly-haired quasi-blonde creature. I can't remember her damn name, down in Florida, right? Or with prosecutors ending up dead in Florida, and this Pakistani pipeline, and what do you want to pick? They're just literally, there's probably close to a dozen scandals floating in the background, and that is a conservative estimate. We keep saying things like, wait until you see the whites of their eyes, right? But given the assumption that what's going on with Trump is something more than the usual back and forth, shell game bullshit, given the assumption that there is all this ammunition from scandals in the background, given the assumption of waiting until you see the whites of their eyes, given the apparent indicators that multiple parties are trying to cast all kinds of doubt, confusion, smoke and mirrors shit with the election itself. And given the assumption that if Trump is going to make this happen, or his coalition through him is going to make this happen, that they need something big, something decisive that goes in the history books and really says, wait a minute, we've shifted gears here. That this is a new thing with our country. We've taken a new direction. We're reinvigorated. We've, out with the old, in with the new. There's got to be a sort of reckoning and accounting. And you've talked about in the past, well, not all of it needs to be above the surface. Not all of it needs to happen in such a way that everybody goes to jail. You've talked about a number of retirements and the rest. But the more we see our system compromised with bullshit, the more we've seen ammunition handed to the Trump coalition, so to speak, should they choose to use it. Depending on how they choose to use it, we know that there's the likelihood that they need to have something big. So here's the last part of my stage setting. We've seen stuff with the Hunter Biden shit going out there. I've talked in my own live streams about how that echoes the Epstein shit. And now we've in fact got the idea that Rudy Giuliani turned over Hunter Biden's laptop to the Delaware police. The Delaware police, from the latest I've seen, have since turned it over to the FBI. But we see the various people coming out to talk about that. So you see Giuliani in particular, who's been tapped as the person to spearhead this. And some other people, I think. I believe I've seen some Fox interviews. I can't remember exactly whom they were with, but they're casting it as a multifaceted scandal. And so you've got the fundamental idea of the Biden scandal, and that's Hunter and his dad, right? But the Biden scandal attaches to the Ukraine, and increasingly we're seeing it attached to things like Russia and China. But then you've got the media cover-up of the Biden scandal. But then that leads us to the concomitant FBI cover-up that seems to be emerging of the Biden scandal. So, how long have they had reputedly the Biden laptop, the FBI? Something like 7 months. So you see how the Biden scandal snowballs into the media scandal and the FBI cover-up scandal. We know the old Breitbart attack technique, and it's of course much older, which is, leak a little bit of it and get everybody and their brother pretending that it isn't real and lying about it, and then leak the rest that exposes them for what they are. It's much along the lines of setting off a bomb in a public place and then having a second one sitting there for when the emergency crews and everybody else shows up, right?
Yeah.
It's solid tradecraft.
As a matter of fact, it is.
Yes. And so it seems like we're getting this multifaceted scandal burgeoning now. And from everything we've seen, remember, I bought into it. I thought something was going to drop on Durham beforehand, and it looks quite solidly like it's not going to. But I've also pointed out that the Durham thing would seem to make more sense coming after the election, so it doesn't seem to be designed to upset it, so that it sits in the history books as a clean, clear win, and everybody gets to tell heartening, patriotic stories about how great we were and the rule of law returned, right?
Da, 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 da.
Right. However, you can get that shit started early. Like I said, you can kick the public off with it by, for example, just teasing them with Epstein stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And shortly after I made that observation, it just emerges that that there was that poor what's her name? What is her fucking name?
Giselle, something or other.
Yeah, Ghislaine Maxwell. Yes, poor Ghislaine Maxwell has failed. Poor thing. She failed in her attempt to keep the testimony that she gave during the initial phase of Epstein getting into trouble sealed.
Yeah,
and that happened on Monday, as I understand it. So we're arriving at the point where I now turn it over to you. But we got the confusion around the election. And Trump's opponents seem to have been most interested in this, casting doubt on every aspect of everything about it.
Mm-hmm.
Then we've got this business of maybe Biden going away, as you had foreseen a long time ago. It still, to me, seems such a short window. Votes have already been cast. It would just cause utter chaos. Maybe you think that that's the kind of chaos that can be worked with. You know, a guy could do something with something like that.
So could a Goyle.
Yes. And then we've got this multivalent scandal, which is going to like deep six many aspects of the media. I feel sure that at some point you're going to bring up Tubin. And then the Biden scandal.
Ollie, you ruined my surprise.
Sorry. I didn't mean to do it. As long as you don't end up in some kind of situation where, you imagine that your camera's off,
Yeah.
And we have to see all that. And then we have this business with the FBI cover up. You've been a long believer and a true believer in this idea of clearing out the seventh floor, things that would have to happen with the FBI, certainly, probably State Department, certainly, and most likely with the NSA, CIA as well. All of these pieces are here, and the specific timing of them is the last little thing that I want to just hammer again and again here. It looks like a lot of this upheaval is going to be timed for after the election. And I cannot completely see how this works, because you'll have the vote that's been dropped with parts of it still, flowing in after the fact.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And anybody could imagine that we're going to have more of the screaming people in the streets if it looks like Trump's doing well. So you got your Antifa types, your BLM types, your pussy hat parades, probably just your people who've been waiting to burn some more shit, for everything to reach a climax around the time of the election, for a massive amount of confusion to be introduced, for a kind of sense of utter cultural disorientation, dislocation, because nobody knows what source they can trust, right? Everything's thrown up into the air. Even the people who are officially charged with writing history have now been called into question. So we don't know, for example, what version of events to trust. Within this specific time frame of the election through to Trump's inauguration, what does that run, about 6 weeks or something? Somewhere in there. I'm not sure. What the hell do you see happening? What can we expect to take shape? What the hell do you think is going on here, sir?
Oh, not too much. I think that, in effect, they will have thrown enough shit at the election process that the only thing they'll have to work with, the only thing they'll have to worry about, is counting all the votes. Now, that's going to take an awful lot of doing, because you just can't count that many votes that quickly in this way. It's just not going to happen, which means that while Trump is going to be the Republican contender, Kamala Harris is going to be the Democratic contender, because our boy Biden is probably going to have a breakdown.
And on that note, I just have to say, I've been talking for quite some time that his, I mean, you pointed it out to me years ago, actually. So I got the original idea from you when you're talking about, I remember we were discussing Reagan, and, he's like, his Alzheimer's is getting to him. I was out of the loop on that one, right? Mm-hmm. That was his dodge. And we have been talking on a number of occasions, and I certainly have, about the likelihood that Biden is pretending to dementia in order to provide himself with a good cover. I just wanted to throw in there that in a recent discussion, I think it was on Stephen Crowder, maybe, when Giuliani was talking with Stephen Crowder, and he said it's likely that, he said it specifically and explicitly, that Biden is simply pretending to have mental issues in order to avoid the RICO shit that he knows is coming. Sorry, I just wanted to throw that in.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. But the thing is, he's going to avoid it. And by avoiding it, he's going to withdraw from the presidency, the presidential candidacy.
And for those who don't know, Tim has for long been saying that Biden's going to pull out. Yeah, maybe. But what do you see happening there? How would that happen? Because again, it would add this enormous amount of further confusion.
Well, considering that our girl Camilla is going to be able to name her vice president. Name her vice president. I'm sorry, you're cut off, Ollie.
Sorry, I'm muted. I'm having a retard moment over here.
Having a little bit of that dementia, are you?
I am. The Thing.
Yeah, the thing.
But
come
on, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, little floating blonde leg hairs that the black children play with in the pool. So how does this work? Are you suggesting that Biden pulls out, but what happens is that they just go ahead and advance Kamala into the top position rather than having, for example, HRC come in? I bet you were getting to this. Let me shut up.
Well, I'm just saying that she's going to be advanced to president, having been on the supposedly winning ticket. Supposedly. And with the external doings that they're postulating, I don't see her having a big problem, except for her own safety, nominating Hillary to be her vice president.
Hillary as a vice president?
Uh-huh. Just being one heartbeat away from the president. Boom, 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 boom.
Now, obviously, you're talking about a possibility, or are you saying that you have all, like, are you putting all your money on that square?
Oh, no. I don't put all my money on any square, bud, because I don't care. I look at it from the standpoint that all of these fools are out there basically playing the Praetorian Guard. Now, to me, it really doesn't matter. Nancy Pelosi is too old. Hillary's really too old and too sick. But she won't let that stop her. So I've got a feeling that by the time all the votes get counted, it's probably going to be a Kamala, whatever her name is, and Hillary ticket. That's good, I'd like to see somebody get brought in from out in the boonies somewhere. But I think they've passed that up.
All right. That was, again, for people who haven't been following all of this back and forth over the last couple of years. Tim has also said that likely to get the guy from beyond left field, who's been kept quiet and prepped in advance. But now, what about this business of the chaos? I feel like that's something that we should.
Well, the chaos is going to be foregone conclusion, old son.
But there's chaos, and then there's the specific idea of electoral uncertainty dialed up on what's his name's Spinal Tap amplifier 211, right? Like really pushing the idea that there's uncertainty about the election. I mean, there's the idea of saying that it's in question, that X side or Y side cheated.
Marty, you got to understand that there's going to be an awful lot of disruption in the electoral process. Oregon, Washington, California, New York, Chicago, all of these places are going to be in an uproar. And they're going to be just raising teetotal hell. They're going to be having riots. And there's going to be burning and looting and pillaging and all kinds of good stuff. It's going to be just marvelous.
But there's the idea of saying we can't trust the election because Trump cheated. We really won.
Sure.
But that's been the gambit is becoming, well, let's just say another pebble's been placed against it, which is changing the dynamics of the whole situation, because now Trump has, and it seems he bought into this very early on and has been pushing it himself, which is that you can't trust the election. The Democrats are trying to fix it. So now you're going to have two sides who have been told by their leading lights for quite some time that the election results can't be relied upon.
That's right.
And
what does that give you?
That gives you a period of contest during which the incumbent has constitutional control over the security services.
Whoops. At the same time, you've got all of these lovely scandals coming through. Now, I figure that Hunter Biden's scandal is probably going to be short-lived phenomena. Going to go down a blaze of glory, and all the Bidens are going to go to jail except for Mr. Biden, Joe Biden, who will wander off into the realms of being the thing, you know. And that'll be good for him, because he can sit out there in federal protective custody in the prison, and he can just carry on with his thing, you know. I don't have to worry about him. At the same time, I feel that there's probably going to be a bunch of these motherfuckers going to get picked up on federal charges that are not related to the election in any way, size, shape, or form. That's what our boy Durham is attending to. Poor Mr. Durham, poor Mr. Barr. Oh, Lord. And how they'll suddenly come through with a major crackdown about halfway through December, I think. And there'll be just lots of folks getting lined up and carried on off in handcuffs.
But you still got an election that both let's just for sake of argument call them the one side and the other, the quote unquote left and the quote unquote right, the two power blocks contesting the election. Both sides have indicated that it can't be trusted. And we just saw a term floated. Where did I see it? I just tweeted about it last night. It was Trump just had a rally in Erie, Pennsylvania. And he had one of his early supporters come up, and this is the thing where Trump's rewarding him for having come on very early as one of Trump's first supporters. So he actually has him on stage, walks away, let him talk on the mic for a little bit. Some guy named Mike who didn't have his suit jacket on, for those who might have caught the rally. And this guy just fielded the expression, refuse to lose. We must refuse to lose, which seems like a neatly little crafted meme, right? Like just do it or get a piece of the rock, right? I can smell, having worked on such things, when something has been, worked and worked and worked through a meeting to come up with the final form of it. So they've introduced this little thought meme into the mix. I want to come back to this business of what happens when both sides have been encouraged to imagine that the election results cannot be trusted?
Well, what does happen, Ollie?
Well, everyone says, well, the succession is in question.
No, everybody doesn't say the succession is in question. That's what a reasonable person would say. What do these people say? We won, we won. Which means what?
That they're attempting to cause more conflict in the streets.
Really? You don't suppose that Trump has laid out the way that's going to travel, do you?
Hopefully some, sharp pencils and smarty pants, staff officers and spooks have set something up.
You don't suppose he's done something with that regulation that Obama put in about putting all sorts of high-rise in the way of being, well, hell, let's just talk about it like it is. Bunch of the goddamn alley dwellers were all set to have their high rises built in the suburbs. Now, not in the financially really good suburbs, I don't even know what houses cost nowadays, but
right, but the
real
business
people live.
That just came up, and Ben Carson was talking about it just in the last day or so, where they,
that's most interesting.
Yeah, the one is that Obama had something called opportunity something.
Yeah.
But if people didn't mix, low income housing with whatever out in the suburbs, then they would lose all kinds of federal highway money. And
they were going to do away with single family dwelling. Yeah,
they don't like that much.
No,
they don't.
And considering they were setting it up for the middle income group, that means that a lot of the new black professionals were looking at, oh shit, we moved out of the projects and now the projects are moving into us.
Right. And what Trump has done is said, let's instead bring the money to the opportunity zones in the cities rather than la-di-da-di, have choices. But now help me. I'm still trying to connect this to the idea of the ongoing confusion and the war in the streets.
This is what is going to be on one side of the platter.
And what is this that is on one side of the platter? I still don't grasp it fully.
The American dream, old son. The American dream of moving on up to the east side.
Yeah, to a deluxe apartment in the sky. Yes.
Yeah. The real thing is that they're looking at suddenly seeing all they have spent their money on, all they've scrimped and saved to get, turned into a project right before their very eyes, and not a damn thing they can do about it.
Right. But now bring us to this phase. I get it. It's mobilizing the idea of the American dream and the rest. But I mean, Trump and he's been pushing this theme forever. I'm still trying to grasp how this relates to the period from November 3rd or whatever to January.
That's going to be part of it. On top of which, you're going to have all these people running around, torching off suburbs.
I was just about to jump there. Yes. These people are saying it's coming out of the cities. It's metastasizing out of the urban areas with the purple-haired fuckwads. And it's now coming out to us, which is, it triggers the, one would hope, remnants of the American response of not in my fucking backyard.
Yeah. About a 12 gauge, not in my backyard. Yeah. 5.56 millimeter, not in my backyard.
It's America's rifle.
That's right.
Right. Okay. But still, you've got a situation where they figure, okay, let's say they can't win it, so they're going to cast doubt on it. And you quite wisely pointed out, I didn't see it. It's not that it's up in the air. It's not a question. It's not like, anti-Trump people are going to be out there saying, we've got to have another election. No, I should have seen that. It will be, no, we won.
Yes.
and massive upheaval.
And
So-
they're going to see very shortly that they ain't got the mass to upheave. That's why you're starting to see more and more of the leftist coming out with more and more weapons.
And fucking up just constantly.
Oh, well, you got to, there's a certain learning curve in having one of them semi-automatic rifles and a pump shotgun and things like that. You got to learn to keep that thing loaded and not loaded and safe and not safe.
And not shoot your friends. Yeah.
Or yourself.
Yeah, that's what they're made feet for, right?
Right.
I'm sorry, the entire thigh and popped femoral arteries from,
wonderful?
Shooting yourself while you're holstering it. Yeah. Yeah. So, John Brown gun club type bullshit. Antifa bullshit. Black Lives Matter, dump a bunch of money into the gangbangers to get them active. Because we have seen a fair amount of speculation, ladies and gentlemen, but I myself have seen a couple of clips that look pretty fucking weird that seem to show Antifa-esque people sidling up to groups of or individual blacks and kind of being like, go get that guy, like, and paying people. So yeah, I think there's a large amount of money being dumped. Speculation, of course, no proof, ladies and gentlemen, but a large amount of money is being dropped not only into the Antifa type folks, but also to make let's just say, get the natives restless.
The only thing is that the natives don't feel particularly secure going out the suburbs. They know what those motherfuckers have out there. And they don't really want part of that. They go out there and sneak in on somebody they already know.
Yeah, they got a tip or they've been watching.
Yeah.
Right. Or they'll be happy to riot in downtown areas where they can get some loot.
Oh, yeah, well, that's fine. Downtown areas, that's within their bailiwick. They and the other gangs just get together and handshake on it and pop a few knuckles here and there. And they're all good to go. There's enough in Macy's to keep everybody happy. Or at least there was.
Yeah, well, yeah, there is that, isn't there? I mean, Miracle Mile's been hit, not once, but twice.
Yeah.
People are kind of like, I'm not so interested in this anymore, Marty.
It can happen.
So, yeah, basically a bunch of, okay, so the vision is we can't trust the election, which means we won. The peasants are revolting. Aren't they always?
On ice.
Yes. And we have to punch a Nazi and save America.
Right.
If we don't put Trump down, the Nazis will rise. Instead, we must crush them and put in place our Truth and Reconciliation Councils.
True.
In a period of about 6 weeks. But now let's get to the suspension of disbelief and the necessary psychological sort of shattering of assumptions that's going to happen for a large portion of the population that, for example, doesn't hang out on YouTube, doesn't hang out on Twitter, isn't, reading books about how McCarthy was right? There's going to have to be let us call it a shepherded psychological transition on the part of the U.S. public that
which Mr. Trump is seeing to.
Yes.
I still am waiting for the Utah boys to come out.
What do you mean by Utah? You mean the good old Mormon White Horse Prophecy types?
Mormons, yeah. The Mormon Church will save the Constitution and the Republic.
Well, that's just a bunch of Jesus fucking Christ. That's just the, I mean, you could argue easily that that's taken care of. That box is checked simply because so many of them are working in the FBI, CIA, and the rest.
Oh, no.
Do you think that there's going to be some specific thing to put a cherry on top of that prophecy?
Yeah, that's why I think Mitt Romney's got involved in being sweet here at the last. Because he has, he's put all that other stuff, anti-Trump stuff off on the side. He's for Trump now. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Somebody's taken that boy aside and whispered in his shell-like ear that if he wants to be anything in Utah politics, he better get in line.
Well, but I mean, he had to have seen that from the beginning. I mean, how compromised would he have had to have been to stick with the program he's been going with? I mean, Romney's 100% a fucking which pocket has money in it, weather vane.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he is.
And having so explicitly,
and which pocket has money in it translates really into which pocket has power in it.
Right.
And he didn't confront the real power in the Mormon church until most recently. My apologies. I'm sorry.
No. He just seems to me to be tainted. I mean,
he is.
Just because you're a Mormon doesn't mean you're an idiot. Like Mormons who are true believers and who take their patriotic duties, which are tied, as we talked about, to their religious duties seriously, have got to know that motherfucker, he looks like Pigpen in the old Charlie Brown comics. Like there's fucking stink and flies buzzing around him. Like he's compromised. He stinks of shit. So I mean, would he really be the choice for a Mormon hero?
Oh, not necessarily for a Mormon hero, but for one of the secondary heroes. One of the also-rans that you need in a republic like ours, where the Senate has a large amount of power.
And for someone who is, the inveterate opponent, to change sides. It's like Lindsey Graham, early on.
Mm-hmm.
Another weather vane.
Sure. You got to understand, Ollie, this is not about realities. This is about perceptions.
Your truths.
About perceptions.
My truths.
It's going to be the government's truth. Because what's going to happen with all of this nonsense is basically that Trump is going to get to write history. As they say, the victor always gets to write history.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap the idea with the Mormons here. Somebody just wrote in the chat that, if you're holding out for a Mormon to save you, things are bad. We had talked earlier about how somebody like, what was his name? The Huber would come in as a Mormon and tie it into all that stuff. It looked like he did nothing. And then it looked like he turned over his shit to Durham. So the jury's still out on that. In this case, however, I don't think Tim is at all saying, and perhaps you could jump in, Tim, that a Mormon's going to save us. It's just that's going to be another, when you're crossing your T's and dotting your I's, preparing the summary paragraph, to Tim's point about writing history, you have to make sure that the various parties get to see themselves reflected in that victory, and build over time, continue to build on the institution that you have, that you've been relying upon as a bulwark. I mean, I was actually just reading in Reflections on the Revolution in France by Burke. There's a spot where he's mocking the French for having taken out the monastic orders. And he's like, look, if you're anybody with any kind of common sense, you would have said, what purpose can this be turned to as an existing institution with all these features? And instead, you've taken them from being useful elements in an institution that was built with great expense over time, that has, certain mind share and brand value, let's just call it in modern terms. And you've turned them all into fucking pensioners, liquidating their property to distribute it. So that's I think this is sort of the same thing that Tim is talking about. If you have a Mormon church that has built into its very sacred prophecies the idea that they must protect and defend the United States, give them a fucking cherry to put on top of their participation in this, strengthen the brand, and create new generations who feel motivated to do the same thing. Whether or not they were doing it in the first place at all really has little bearing on it, does it?
Well, I think it has little bearing on it from the standpoint the prophet's been behind it all along.
I'm not sure what you mean there.
The prophet of the Mormon church.
Yeah,
big high muckety muck.
But what do you mean been behind it all along. You mean that we can see that the prophecy is borne out, and there were these antecedents and foreshadowings in the affairs of men, and the Mormons had come through? Or do you mean, no, there's somebody specifically in the Mormon church who's been working in the background?
Both. See, the prophet has an entire council that works with him. And there are all these old, geeky, shaky Mormons out there doing this shit. Just like there are a whole bunch of evangelicals that are toting the same freight. I look at them strictly as place the pebble right here.
Right. And we're not, again, this isn't to focus overly on Mormons. This is just
I just got into that because Huber is my boy.
And you got this business where Romney seems to be figuring out what sort of what side of his toast is buttered. All right. Well, yeah. So evangelicals to the various parties that have a stake in, you know,
you may have noticed that Trump's been talking God a lot more lately.
Indeed, he has, and the fact that they want to take it out of the Pledge of Allegiance and, you know, our religious freedoms and shutting down churches, and now you got what's his name. De Blasio pissing off conservative Jews in New York.
Yeah.
And once you piss off the conservative Jews, then a bunch of the evangelicals who are like, we must retake Israel, you know, they come on board. So the Judeo-Christian hyphen arrangement gets activated.
It does, doesn't it?
So let's step around this. We've got the media and the FBI. We've talked about the scandals that are likely to come through.
By the way, evangelicals are big-time gun owners, so are Mormons. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that at all. Yeah.
I'm sorry, you were saying.
We have the business with the Biden scandal and these other scandals. So I think we're going to distinctly see an Epstein one, and now we've got the Hunter Biden one. And now we're seeing
both of them heavily sexual
and involving minors. They're coming together. And that to me suggests that we're going to see what I kind of discussed it in a tweet recently, like the business with QAnon. Academic Agent was asking a good question where he was basically saying, you know, what is this with hammering on QAnon? What is this with hammering on QAnon? Because I've mentioned this before. I saw it on Sean Hannity where he's like, oh, QAnon, you know, everybody's saying that it's QAnon stuff. Hannity is saying, you know, I don't even know what it is. I've looked and I've tried to figure it out. Maybe one of you guys can tell me what it is. I don't even know what it is. And I don't even, you know, who cares about all that stuff? You know, QAnon. You know, what we really have to focus on is now, if they didn't want QAnon talked about, they wouldn't have brought it up at all. Period.
Really?
So they do want it talked about, but they want some plausible deniability and distance. And QAnon has long seemed to me to be a kind of theater. And it seems that we're approaching the climax and denouement of the QAnon theater. And everybody should note that channels like Amazing Polly and some of these other QAnon channels were just kicked off of YouTube. And I don't know how many people are in the quote unquote QAnon camp. I'm not endorsing QAnon. It's all speculation. They're all crazy conspiracy theorists. They're all crazy conspiracy theorists. Please don't take my channel down, YouTube. So however many of them there are, I'd have to guess there's at least 100,000 true believer QAnon people, probably more like a couple 100,000. And they've been following this shit closely. They follow their channels. They follow their little scuttlebutt that flows through. That theater is approaching its climax and denouement. And you can see the NBC interview with Trump that happened with the so-called town hall, where the woman was like, how are you talking about QAnon? How are you? Yeah, we know it's not true. And Trump's like, no, we don't. And she's like, no, we do know. And you know. And he's like, no, you don't. And what's so bad about being against pedophiles anyway? And, you know, I can't trust the media. It sounds like everybody wanted to mention that to elevate its profile somewhat in anticipation, I would guess, of the fact that the Jeffrey Epstein stuff is going to come together. And it's nicely moving in parallel with the Hunter Biden now, with all these claims of underage girls on his laptop, it going to the Delaware police, going from the Delaware police to the FBI.
Well, that's what happens when you put some nice derrieres on there with cocaine on them.
Yeah,
likely they are 14 and 15 years old. I'm sorry.
Likely that sort of thing is going on in the in the background. So the scandals is going to be the core of the scandals, but then we're going to have two contingent, accidental in the technical sense, secondary and tertiary scandals that flow off of it, as I was talking about at the beginning, the media cover-up scandal and the FBI scandal. So let's cover those two things, and then maybe we can move to taking questions from the audience. The first, if that suits you.
Sure.
The first one, let's cover the business of the media cover-up. There's going to have to be, some chickens coming home to roosts, some debts being called in as regards to the media. Before we go to the FBI, let's look at the media. What do you think we're going to see happen there?
Oh, whole bunch of Tubins.
Tubin! That dude, man. That guy. I mean, what do you think the odds are that he turned off his camera and didn't know it was still on? I'm not
Probably
buying
pretty
it.
good.
Really?
Probably pretty good, yeah.
I don't think that if you're the kind of person who jerks off to a Zoom call, speculation, ladies and gentlemen, God knows if it really happened. If you're the kind of person who jerks off to a work meeting Zoom call, I have to tell you, that doesn't seem to me like the kind of person for whom that's the first time.
No.
Which suggests to me, as easy as, computers are ridiculously easy to hack. That suggests to me somebody might have been waiting there to give him a little dose of something.
Give him a little help.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Could have been.
And it's at least possible. And that was pointed.
It could also have been just the nonsense of forgetting. Exactly how easy is it to forget something like that? Especially when you get excited and you've got a porn channel going on the other screen.
God knows. Yeah, I don't know. Has any footage? Maybe somebody can put in the comment section whether anybody knows whether or not any of that shit has come out. Because I would like to see who else was on the call, because I want to see who is his little anima or animus figure that he has focused upon to such an extent. Or maybe he just wants it to feel like he's jerking off on all of them to teach him a lesson.
Sure. Why not?
It'd be interesting in a sort of psychological
Not only that, but he's
pathology.
just too important. He is too important to be bothered with such things.
Yes.
And so he was, up until that moment, he was. That's why he dragging him in by the foot.
Yeah, good old Tubin.
Good old
and they're going to be more, I feel. So coming back to the media cover-up stuff. So it seems to me you're suggesting that individuals are going to suffer some rather striking fault. What was it, Matt Lauer or somebody? Who was it? There have been a number of these.
Lemon. There's going to be what's that fellow's name? Who's the major show there at CNN?
He's the one. Gloria Vanderbilt. No, Brian Stelter. Yeah, but Gloria Vanderbilt's son is probably going to be catching some shit.
Oh, well, yes, he probably is. I don't see too many of these people being able to escape the thing of, I used to be a reporter at NBC. I worked at ABC.
Once I was
very
on air. CNN.
I was on air talent. Oh, no, man, there's going to be a whole bunch of them motherfuckers out there flipping burgers.
And then what do you think about the changing of media? I've seen, for example, OAN is getting lots of...
there's going to be a lot of uproar and change of media and all kinds of things like that, Ollie.
Right, OAN is coming up.
This time?
Newsmax is coming up, getting a lot of camera time from administration officials.
Sure.
So disappearance of existing channels getting rolled under, quote unquote, going out of business, as Trump would say. Some of them getting shoved into a corner like New York Times simply because the press model, the print models disappeared. Individual members of the press getting publicly humiliated.
Yeah.
Is there anything else over there on the press side that you think deserves our attention or mention?
Oh, not too much. I kind of look at them like they're there's nothing much going on there. When you look at it, it just seems to be, well, people like Bezos keeping themselves happy and occupied with a newspaper. It doesn't really matter.
Okay, so we have this business of the media, right? So we have the core scandals, the Biden scandals, the Epstein scandals, that sort of thing. Possibly some others getting thrown in, and some good juicy shit from Durham, I still believe.
Mm-hmm.
Then a secondary scandal as a sort of second order follow-on effect of the primary one, which is the media covering it up. And then we've got the business of the three-letter agencies and the rest. You know, now you've talked about how that needs to happen.
It will.
Now we're talking about how it's likely going to happen. And at least part of that, I think, I mean, like we said, there's the need to have a major dramatic, scandalous sort of constellation that goes down in order to energize the country to do things like deal with the fucking shit in our public schools, to deal with the shit in media. Now, there are a lot of more quiet ways that that can happen because, as we've talked about, the media there's a crisis of confidence with the U.S. Population not trusting it, and that's spreading
There's
abroad.
going to be a big thing with the teachers' unions as well.
Right, and with the teachers' unions, the public sort of government overlap aspect, but there's also the business of
school boards.
Yes, but there's also the business of higher education, and those people are being knocked back onto the ropes already because they can't open. They can't, you know, the richest of them can do for a while on the interest that they're earning on their endowments, but everybody else is fucking treading water. And they're kind of getting more, you know, to the point where they're about to go under. And that's happening with the movie industry in Hollywood too. As I mentioned in a previous live stream, where are all the new movies that are supposed to be released right now for the holiday season? Where are the fucking TV shows? As I've heard from people who work, you know, as production people, lighting people, sound people, they're not working. And so the stage has been set beautifully. You know, that old thing you said, what's the first law of intelligence? Don't interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. This COVID shit is about to fuck them because it is going to slide whole industries off the map. Now, part of what worries me about that, we won't go into it here, but I want to put a pin in the map. What worries me about that is that there's been quite a bit of this remaking of society and transformation of industries that COVID was intended to usher in, that would be filled with all sorts of centralized surveillance, fourth generation, fourth industrial revolution, telecommuting, right, drone delivery, nobody owns cars, XXX as a service. So there are ways in which
see, all that works, you got plenty of money.
It also works if you still control the fucking reins of power. But I'm a little bit worried. Again, I don't want to go closely into this, but Trump is going to, I mean, some of this is it's time to railroad. And even though a different power group may be in position, they still want to unite all under heaven. They still want to surveil everything. And so there are going to be considerable opportunities for all of this to be abused by Trump and his crew, even if they win. And I think they will.
They will.
But leaving that aside, the FBI cover-up, the CIA stuff, your Brennan, your Christopher Wray. Remember, it's going to have to be a series of explosions that are all timed perfectly to, you know, to build on the aftershocks and standing waves of the other ones in order to get maximum effect. The central one is Inmate Brennan. Yeah, number 2543601. Yeah.
Here, sir.
Yeah, I don't know how. Yeah, I don't know. We know that the central scandals are going to explode and they're going to flow over and cause the media scandals. The combination of the central scandals and the media scandals, the street violence and the rest. What can we expect to see happen with this FBI and CIA business? We're getting closer to it. Do you think that it's likely to
be a lot of office space come available on the 6th and 7th floor?
Yes, and we've even had talks about wanting to rebuild those buildings. I seem to recall something about that talk about, you know, relocating the FBI headquarters, demolishing and building a new one. And remember, there was a while there where Trump was talking about, why can't we make beautiful old, you know, classic American buildings in the old style,
Sure.
with columns and things, rather than these
Yeah.
squatting fucking commie, you know, postmodern monstrosities. But specifically for sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I'm wandering off into La La Land. My apologies, Tim. Specifically for this business of the three-letter agencies, the corruption in law enforcement, particularly at the federal level, Durham is going to be a part of it. But what I want to get from you is, do you think that specifically things are going to happen about that in the period from November 3rd out to January, whatever?
Yeah.
And so Durham is likely to have aspects of his things drop shortly after the election.
Yeah.
And
that's what he told Mr. Barr, what Mr. Barr has told us.
That it's shortly after the election, really?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've heard we might have to wait until after the election. Yes, I've heard that, but not any indicator that it would be immediately.
There aren't any indicators about like that. But it's going to be
speculation.
Exciting. Yes, it's speculation. Pure speculation.
Well, what happens if you have an upheaval? That's what I'm trying to get at. The reason that I mentioned that you have the central scandals with your Bidens and your Epsteins and shit, right? And then you have your secondary scandal, which is the media trying to hide that. And then you have the law enforcement scandal. Why did the FBI do nothing with, you know, Hunter Biden's laptop or whatever during the period they had it? As I said at the outset, it seems as though they're going to be trying to have all of these things happen at once, where they can take advantage, right? You don't have one unit attack and have two others sit there, right? When you want to have that overwhelming force thing, you have them all drive in. So what can we expect to see in terms of upheaval with the three-letter agencies if we're talking about the same time period where there's
talking about what we can see?
Right. But let me add this little piece in, because I think it needs to be here. When you're going after three-letter agencies, or at least the leadership of them, what does that look like when you're attempting to do that at the same time that you've got national upheaval and the need for the security forces to be operating? See what I'm getting at? Number one, you're going to have
you have to be able to trust your agencies, three-letter or not. Which means that everybody whose security clearance is all in doubt needs to go flush. And no better time to do it than when you're in the midst of one of these things.
Because everybody will be looking at the fact that such and such town square is burning.
They sure will. They won't be noticing all the people who are going to jail behind this shit, and the ones who are taking early retirement.
And cutting deals, yeah.
Yeah.
Sheer speculation. Well, then
there'll be a lot of stuff that's going to come down to, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. Oh God, it wasn't me. It was him. Take my mama.
Yeah, that's the what do you call it? The sort of the turning point at which the rats recognize the ship is sinking. And suddenly everybody and their brother is rolling over everybody on their brother.
Yeah.
And that, I think, has begun. I think that's happening now behind the scenes.
Yeah, very much.
Which is why you have this brittle, frenzied desperation.
Let me ask you something. Have you heard anything about Mr. Durham's subpoenas, his list of anybody that's being called before the grand jury?
No, nothing.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry. Do pardon me.
Have you?
I guess they're just sitting there doing a tubing.
Right. That's absolutely right. That's a new verb. Doing a tubing. Getting my tubing on. But the way I'd approach it if I were a leftist scumbag would be that I would roll in and talk all about how it's a coup and Trump is trying to deny the will of the democratically expressed will of the American people and trying to seize power of the government. It's a coup. It's a junta or whatever. And he's got real problems.
What they're talking about?
Almost. And they're getting close. But the thing is, What happened? I mean, can he try? From everything I've seen, the top brass in the military isn't even reliable at this point.
They are.
Meaning, even if they're unreliable, they're going to do what they're told in the direct chain of command.
If not, there'll be some people there to take them away.
So basically, there are guardians watching the guardians, and they're going to be mobilized.
They're called military police. Military police don't give a fuck. An MP private can stop a general for exceeding the speed limit. And the general has to pull over and take the fucking ticket. Military police just don't give a fuck. They're outside the regular chain of command, but they still answer to the commander-in-chief. And you may have noticed when they show you all these little buildings with all these top-heavy brass just running around everywhere, generals, colonels, lieutenants, majors, captains, everybody. There's always a couple of MPs standing by every door. And the MPs have, my gosh, a pistol on their hip.
And what was, all right, point taken. You're just gently wrapping me with it, right? What was that guy in Alabama, Roy what?
I've forgotten, but I know who you're talking about.
He was an MP, wasn't he? I mean,
yep.
as an illustration of someone who clearly does not give a fuck.
That's right.
There it is. Okay. Okay, but surely you can see some things about the specifics of what would happen with the FBI and CIA and Brennan and the rest of them. What should we expect to see during this period? It's going to be we're going to have our eyes glued to the screens, are we not, during this phase?
I don't like glue on my eyes.
All right. The jokes just keep going up in quality. But what happens, do you think, with the CIA, Brennan, Clapper?
Did you ever notice that there are all kinds of guards standing around the CIA? And they tend to hire military policemen. They love an ex-military police.
All right. So all you're pointing out to me is that there is a way to put your hands on people who are in charge of things where they ain't got to like it.
That's it.
But I'm just thinking in terms of the narrative that surrounds it and what will be revealed and the counter narrative that comes out, how it will be viewed by the public, how it will be presented to the public. What about that?
Will it be? Will it be presented to the public?
I just don't see how you get to put somebody like John Brennan in the pokey without it making the news. Now, I'll grant you, he's out now.
On a low level. Mr. Brennan has been arrested for, what, lying to Congress? Even a 5-year sentence would be a life sentence for that old fart. A lot of the other people are going to be investigated and locked up, basically, for non-specified federal charges that'll probably send them down to somewhere like Guantanamo or somewhere like, I don't know, maybe Fort Dix, somewhere like that, in one of the quieter areas of Fort Dix.
And what do you think, just to throw a last little piece in there, and then maybe we can turn to taking some questions from people. Right. What do you think about these various oligarchs, these various power players, your Bill Gates, your George Soroses, your Jeff Bezoses? What do you think happens with them?
Well, I think that Mr. Bezos, Mr. Gates, and the rest are going to find themselves in a very unenviable position they're going to find out exactly how much their money is worth against the federal government, which is meaningless. The federal government can freeze your assets, and they probably will.
So am I hearing from you explicitly a prediction that there's going to be reckoning specifically for people at the level of, and perhaps even including Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, George Soros?
Yeah. Now, if they reckon along with them and they go along peacefully, they'll probably get to keep their money.
Right.
If they don't, then the feds will seize it.
All right. All right.
Good luck at getting it back.
Yeah. If the cops pull you over and they just decide you have too much cash in your possession, they can seize it, and good luck fucking getting it back.
That's
just
it.
like the sheer amount of money in cash on a person is suspicious.
Yes.
We'll take that off your hands. Mm-hmm. And did I forget? Did I forget to tell you that under the RICO stuff that we get to distribute it to our precincts and this kind of shit?
You know, sure.
Or our sheriff's department or whatever the fuck it is. Okay.
Doesn't matter.
All right. Well then.
How about some questions?
Food for thought. Yes, people lay questions on us. I'll be looking for at Semiagog, but I've got this problem, man. I can't even explain it because it's too stupid and I'm too embarrassed by it. But for whatever reason, when I go to my chat window, it'll highlight my name depending on what Google account I'm logged in under. And it's got me under one of my small accounts. So it's not the Semiagog account. So it doesn't highlight Semiagog. And of course, the damn chat window for StreamYard doesn't highlight Semiagog. So anyway, I'll try to keep my eyes open for it. One of these days, I'll figure out how to switch the Google account over to the one for Semiagog to have it show. You think it's straightforward, and it ain't fucking working anyway. I'm boring the shit out of you. Let's start with our questions. I'm going to start from this point here. You're probably best if you put Semiagog or Semi in all caps so that I can see it. But the first question that I see here is from Jane J. It says, would it even be possible to deal with them without tackling those from overseas intelligence? Well, sure. Yeah, and I'll let Tim opine, but my view is it looks like a bunch of these overseas intelligence services are helping us. I believe the Netanyahu faction of the Israeli intelligence is very much behind the scenes and working on this. I believe the Russians are very much behind the scenes and working on this. And I would add that the Brits are likely being slapped around and sorting out, coming to terms with the fact that they're going to have to help with this if they want to have any kind of future relationship. And then the last one is the stuff that's been circulating about how there's an internal war going on in China, and that these three power players over there who formerly held
Ollie's account is not known as Ollie Tubin.
Ollie Tubin, what the fuck? Somebody's talking about Ollie Tubin. Ollie Tubin, that motherfucker. Keep it up, man. Keep it up. Tubin. Okay. So yeah, Tim, what do you have to say to the question? Would it be possible to deal with them without tackling those from overseas intelligence? The last point I was adding in is it looks like there are factions within Chinese intelligence that are probably at this point assisting. Your thoughts?
Well, I think there are factions in everybody's intelligence that are in our favor at this point. I don't see anybody who actually wants and thinks that they're going to get a Biden presidency. Not happening, not on the cards.
Right. The only people who still even imagine that's possible are leftists and fucking, civilians in a bubble. So it must be increasingly apparent to everybody now.
Yeah, I think it is.
So you don't see that presenting any difficulty with them being able to go? Okay. No. All right. This is from GTFO YouTube. Semiagog. This year, the Americans got a little taste of socialism with the Trump check. Why wouldn't they take a nice big bite under Biden? Well, my answer would be that because Biden's not going to come into power and that Trump is going to, the way I see it, and I'll turn it quickly over to Tim, is that all the money that's having to be dumped and is becoming part of the national debt and everything in the view of Trump and his partisans is a war budget. That this is actually a war that we're in. Mm-hmm. We're paying to fight the war. And like all wars, it's going to be fucking expensive. And the national debt is enormous. But what everybody's forgetting is that to the victor, the spoils. And everybody keeps forgetting that this war, because that's what we're in at present, an actual war. It's just an unrestricted war, and Trump is the fucking wartime president during our war. They keep forgetting that after we win, we're going to be raking in the fucking money. So while we won't bring it all the way down to a low level, it's going to be significantly knocked back. And for average swinging dicks out on the street, we're going to be making a lot of money in the U.S. and many of these countries that come along with us. But sorry, your thoughts, Tim?
I think you're right.
Can I hear that? What was that? What was that?
I think you're right.
Exactly.
There you are.
I love to hear that. I should hear it more often. Go on. Sorry.
That's all right. The thing is that we're going to be the winners in this war. It's going to be a bloody war there at the last. I see it more along the lines of crushing those who have opposed. I see our systems coming together and stomping the dog shit out of them. Oregon, Washington, Idaho, California, Illinois, New York are going to be just stomped. Yeah, just stomped to shit. Parts of Idaho.
Right. Yeah, they've been like Twin Falls. They've been pumping in, all kinds of refugees. Speculation, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, well, here we have one from adherent of Lady Columbia. Hello. My impression is that he's had a question for quite some time. He's been wanting to ask you. It's not directly on topic, but let's throw it in so he's not left hanging. What are your thoughts on Nixon?
Nixon was a multifaceted individual. That's like asking me what I think about Trump.
In terms of his legacy, the general stories told about him, how should he be thought of in the broad, the most straightforward terms that you could explain quickly? What's the shorthand on Nixon as a historical figure? I realize that
one of the great ones.
You think so?
Yeah, I do. If it hadn't been for the Watergate scandal bullshit, he'd probably have been a marvelous president.
And you think he would have turned around a lot of this LBJ stuff? And hence, he had to go.
Yeah. So they took him out with a couple of small-time Cuban burglars and a former CIA agent. That's all.
And it was cheap. They got him cheap, right?
Very cheap.
And fucked him thoroughly. Okay. Let me see what we have here. Somebody is like talking about passing a message to Semiagog through Amanda Anderson. Tell him I wish for a Clips channel for Christmas. Live streams are too long, and I can't linger for the nuggets that are occasionally dropped. Sorry, man. Yeah, no offense, but yeah, I'm not gonna
no offense, but tough shit.
I'm not gonna cut the crust off your cheese sandwich for you. And you could always start that very channel yourself.
There you go.
Okay. This from H. Grimes. Semiagog, thoughts on U.S. companies abusing us for the Chi-Coms and if it ties to the sellouts.
Yeah,
Yeah, my part is I've seen the thing brought up about the manufacturing sector versus the financial sector, and the way the financial sector doesn't have to be in any place to make its money, really, and how the financial sector has grown to be enormously powerful. It always was, but it always was in conjunction with the manufacturing sector. So like the example I used before, like the Krupps family in Germany, right? Or the Fords or these Westinghouse, these big power players with manufacturing. I think that they got subverted because they got enormous profits by letting the manufacturing go on in China. But they've now gotten to this point where China's making the final dash for hegemony. And that means that it had to drop its little stalking horse costume, or it had to throw its little sheepskin off its wolf back and make a run for the finish line.
At the same time, they lost out on a whole bunch of the internal systems that they thought they had in place that they did not.
Well, I wanted to add that the manufacturers have now seen the writing on the wall. Yeah, they made money for a while, but China's about to eclipse them, steal their intellectual property, no longer allow them to manufacture where they have been. And the labor costs are going up in any case. So you got a whole bunch of these manufacturers who are previously being kept happy by getting cut into a portion of the deal. They realize they're about to get cut out. And so now, the financial side and the manufacturing side are two big elements in the military industrial complex. But now it seems to me that there's a kind of split in it. And so some of these manufacturers, and they're global, they're not just in the US, they're in places like Australia, they're in places like Germany, they're in places like the United Kingdom. All these, former centers of the industrialized West have that power block there, and they smell what's going on as it goes global. And so I think that ties into this question on thoughts on US companies abusing us for the CHICOMs, and if it ties to the sellouts. I don't know if I'm directly answering H. Grimes' question, but now I'm going to be silent. And Tim, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I think it's fairly obvious. These sellout companies have taken a lot of money out of China, have taken a lot of money out of the US, and now they're in a position where they can't really go anywhere.
Because the whole world is now in the grips of this system, right?
Oh, so. Well, Ollie, I guess it probably does mean that.
All right.
So they're going to sit there with a whole bunch of money in their pockets saying, please, won't somebody take my money and let me in?
And
Liechtenstein is probably going to be seeing a big surge in population, along with Monaco.
At least nameplates, right?
Yeah.
Okay, this is from BDB. Semiagog, would an intranet solve any of these problems? And if not, how do you regulate the internet if it is viewed as international waters? That's coming. That's the 5G fight. I don't know a lot about it, but I know a little, and it's going to be very complex. But most people don't recognize, and many people do, but most don't, that the business with 5G, the enormous additional bandwidth, the vast majority of it is not going to directly affect like your experience of the speed of the processing or any of that. It's set in the background for machines to talk to each other with what they call edge computing and all these devices coming together to paint.
You mean my internet's not going to speed up a whole bunch?
As I understand it, no. It's to the bandwidth is to carry all the other devices in your house, like your refrigerator, your thermostat, all the stuff that people have been playing games with Nest, things like
my refrigerator and thermostat don't do that.
Yeah, they don't. I've seen them. No, they don't talk to you. No.
Well,
but yeah,
so they just grumble.
Yeah, or make a strange squeaking background sound. Yes.
That's about it. Yeah.
But this is a subject. Sorry, BDB. This is a little bit outside the scope. Tim, is there anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, it's going to have little, if anything, to do with the real world for a while. It's going to be one of those things where we're going to have to wait for 7G or 8G before it gets to us.
Yeah, I tend to disagree, but we'll see. Just the time to railroad is now. There's big advantages to it, and if the U.S. waits on doing it, they're going to lose the ability to jump into the driver's seat again.
Oh, I don't mean we're going to wait and lose the ability. I just mean it's not going to affect the average schmuck like me. Not going to have that
Yeah,
much to do with me.
but then again, remember, you live up on top of a mountain with the wife, the dogs, the kids, and me. Um, and I've been going out over not over this last year, but the previous 2 years, I've been traveling all over the country and sometimes internationally, talking to people about these developments, what's getting put in, the number of people who have webcams across their house, the number of people who have deliveries to their house and automatic garage door openers with cameras, the people who track their children through their cell phones, it's everywhere. You don't see it. It's already begun. I mean, to a considerable extent, I don't even see it because I'm not interested in it. I'm going to the fucking woods, but the rest of them are sucking it up. I mean, they're down on all fours with their mouth against the floor to suck up every bit of the new tech stuff. They love it.
Of course.
Love it. So I tend to think it's coming sooner than later, but if it gets worked out in the sense of how you parcel them out, when you say intranet B2B, I tend to think of the idea of dividing and having these insulated sections. China's playing games with it. Google is helping them to do it. I don't know how that's going to work out in terms of how they box different sections in, if they do so, how they do so, whether it's based on some technical standard, whether there's some hardware dimension of it that functions sort of. That's all I got for you at the moment. If I don't shut up now, it'll never happen. Maynard Frith, I'll let you answer this one too, because I don't know shit about this. What do you think of What do you guys think of global oil companies removing top sides from rigs worldwide?
Depends on how far they take it. There are any number of things like gas burn-offs that I can see them using the gas as a product. That's fine. As far as the rest of it, no, I think that's too much too soon. I really don't think that they're going to be able to sustain that.
You mean in terms of changing the energy situation?
No, in terms of
or just simply shutting it down because there's a lack of demand at present?
No, he's talking about taking off top sides.
What does that mean for those of us who don't know?
Well, last time I looked, that meant all the stuff on that's above water.
So basically shutting down operations at any given point of drilling?
No.
Or pumping?
Having the whole thing underwater.
Oh, so it keeps functioning?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I guess that's sort of an answer. I'm not qualified to even form a judgment about it. So, okay. Killer T Cell says, do you think the political theater is going to stay vague, ambiguous, keeping the left-right paradigm? Like, is Marxism going to catch it in the neck so it's anathema to society for a while?
Yeah.
Leftists will no longer be popular?
That's right.
Commies will be told to shut the fuck up?
Uh-huh.
Yes, a consummation devoutly to be wished. Yes.
Well, that's all right. They'll have various and sundry ways of dealing with them. Mostly they'll be clickety-clack, clickety-clack.
Clickety-clack.
Mm-hmm.
And you ain't fucking coming back.
That's right.
It
And
just gives
all
me,
those little people being, yeah, I know, being exported, if you will, or deported down to sub-Saharan Africa again.
there it is. Okay, we have this from, well, I guess you just sort of answered El Vaquero 555. Hello, by the way. His question is, if this is a war, and I described it as the unrestricted model, but if this is a war, what do you think will happen to the illegals, refugees? So I guess your take, Tim, is that they're shortly going to be repatriated, sent home.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Fred Yang says, I don't imagine Tim, a humble man, could ever have predicted that one day near enough 300 people would tune in to listen to his fanciful and frankly highly improbable conjectures.
Well, it at least gives him somewhere to put his questions.
There it is. You're all gentle today, Tim.
I'm
That's
trying
so
to
sweet.
be, Ollie. I'm trying to be.
Okay, blatant localism. Semigog, who would be a likely successor to Trump in 2024? Rand Paul, Devin Nunes. Tim and I have discussed Mike Pompeo. But otherwise, I don't know. Tim, do you have any other possible guys who might be involved? Who might
Mike
come in?
Pompeo seems to be the best pick now. Of course, that leaves 4 years. And we'll see what Mike Pompeo does with those 4 years and whether he maintains himself in government service for those 4 years, or does he fall afoul of the Trump machine and find himself out?
Well, there
or
it
does
is.
Somebody else come in.
Right. Sashay in. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. John Ski's in the house. Hello, sir. Let's see here. Tubin got a semi. Oh my fucking God, man. Just walked right into that shit. Okay. Where'd it go? There was a Palooka question, damn it. Right when I'm about to like read it, it fucking refreshes. God, and I'm way behind, man. All right, what do we got here? We still got a half hour left. It's just gonna kind of go like it goes. I'm gonna cherry pick the ones that look good here, peoples, rather than just taking everything in the slot. Let me see if I can find where it cut off though. Okay, that's I'm sort of back. Sorry, peoples. Sorry, peoples. That was blatant localism on the successor. We got that one. And let's see, I just want to do Palooka, right? Palooka 82, is Trump going to keep allowing governors to manage the peaceful riot situations post-election? If not, how will Trump use force while justifying its use? Tim, any thoughts on that? Basically, they're going to go out and show their asses. How the hammer will finally come down. How will it be justified?
These people are denying citizens of the United States their constitutional rights. That's how it will be determined.
And there will be enough upheaval in various places that Trump will stop being coy about federalism and be like, no, we need to take federal action because this is across the country.
That's right. And because of the interrelatedness and interconnectedness of the violence. So many people are coming from so many places.
Right. Interstate commerce, right?
Whoops, look out.
All right, this is from John Ski. Definitely this fellow responses to questions. Tim, thoughts on Beto O'Rourke as Biden's gun confiscation czar if Biden wins? I don't think Biden's going to win, but Tim?
I don't either. I think he'd make an excellent gun round-upper. Hell yes, I'm going to take your AR-15s. That was all you needed to hear.
Right, come and get them.
That's it. Mullen lobby, you know.
Yeah, this is H Grimes saying, Semigog, does that mean my half broken ass can go back to work soon? By the way, my half broken ass would like to go back to work soon. I think everybody wants to fucking go back to work soon.
There you go.
There's nothing exciting as seeing like all the money you'd save go away because you're fucking having to tread water. It's fun, isn't it? Yeah. So are we going to go back to work soon, Tim?
Sure you are.
This thing of Tim leaning forward to read the comments, it's fucking, it's creepy. All right.
There's going to be all kinds of new industries opening up like a motherfucker.
It looks like maybe you saw the question from Bill. I don't know. Should we move our manufacturing to Mexico? They're cheaper labor than China, lower shipping costs, and it'll keep Mexicans in Mexico by raising living standards, frees Asia up too. What do you think of all that, Tim? I like the idea of people working here.
I think it's wonderful, Ollie. I think it's just marvelous. If he were Mexican and his company were Mexican.
But if not, keep the jobs in fucking America.
There you are.
All right. Let's see. Boomer21 says, Semigog and Tim, are you both aware that 5G comprises 42,000 satellites that wrap around the Earth like a fishing net around a basketball, which will be up and running in January of 2021? I was not aware that it's 42,000.
I wasn't aware of the exact number, but I knew it was an immense number.
We'll have to deal with that in another discussion. Thank you for the question, though, Boober21. Unless there was some specific thing you wanted to say, Tim?
No.
All right. Johnsky's out there. 5G Prince Albert? I don't even want to fucking know what that involves piercing. Okay, adherent of Lady Columbia. Tim, what would be the point of the U.S. becoming an empire? I ask because I hear people say the U.S. has 200 years left because we're an empire. Or maybe had 200 years in the first place. I don't know. But I have a nag in my head that says it's BS. What's your view on the U.S. as being an empire, Tim?
The U.S. is not an empire.
What do you say to all the people who come in and be like, well, we control all these countries. We dictate policy through our military. We demand that certain things be done a certain way. How on earth could you say it's not an empire?
Very easily. We do not regard these countries as colonies as such. We do not take from them natural resources. We do not provide to them finished product in the usual colonial sense. We allow them to purchase and to sell to anybody they want. It just happens that we offer the best price. It just happens that we offer the best goods.
Well, maybe we're not quite an empire, but I wouldn't say that we're, there are doubtless aspects where as a world power, there are reflections and echoes, right? They can sell it for whatever, to whom they wish, to whomever they wish, so long as we don't disagree.
They can even sell as if we disagree, if they jump through certain hoops. It's not a big problem to get around an embargo. It's not a big problem to have your product show up in North Korea, except the North Koreans don't have the money to buy it.
All right. Well, this would be a long discussion because there are certainly ways in which the U.S. is.
What about Iran?
What about Iran?
Yeah, what about Iran? They have no money. They had no money that we didn't give them.
Well, I mean,
they had no money that we didn't allow them to make.
Right, because we locked them in. We basically engaged in an act of war against Iran early on because economic sanctions are, frankly, a blockade. And to blockade is an act of war, which leads us to behaving like an empire in certain respects. Now, I'll grant you there are big differences too, but
yes, there are.
All right, well then
it will be, for a different discussion at a different time.
Well, this is from John Bowler. Hello, sir. Asks, do you see Trump putting the EU, Merkel, and the rest of that crew in his sights as long as he's rearranging power dynamics? I'll let Tim answer, but my view is he already has been, and that coming cooperation between the U.S. and Russia is in particular going to bear upon that. And that you're going to see I think you're going to see the EU shift probably more in a Poland-Hungary kind of direction in terms of a
Really?
federal arrangement for cooperation. But Tim?
I tend to agree with you, Ollie. Very much. Poland and Hungary being the crucial, pivotal point. Of course, you know, there are real enemies. Poland and Hungary are.
Oh yeah, we've recently heard a terrible, yeah. Poland and Hungary, big threat to the United States. Yes.
Big threat.
All right. Let's see here. Old school viewers in the house. It's lovely. Amanda Anderson, John Ski's in the house. Like I said, John Baller in here. Maynard Frith has been around for a long time. We got our B2B. We got Tazi and Michelle. Enter the Void. Look at all these folks here. Lance Corporal Veteran. I got to find a question here. All these peoples. Put a semicog in front of it. It helps if it's capital letters so I can fucking see it. Oh, here's one from Lance Corporal Veteran. How will things be dealt with on these governors and attorney generals locking down economies and arresting citizens unconstitutionally?
The important word there is unconstitutionally. If federal lawsuits are brought against these people by citizens, they will be dealt with. If we wait on the Justice Department to try to deal with all of the unconstitutional shit that's gone on, it's going to be quite a wait.
So we're likely to see perhaps some significant moves that open up people to suit, as we've just seen hinted at, in the sense that, you know, bills that have been pushed forward to, for example, make municipalities liable or set it up so that they can face suits from citizens who've been mistreated and the rest. So it sounds to me like in large part it's going to depend upon whether or not we can take the House. And if we could take the House in this upcoming election, then yeah, a lot of things are going to move forward smoothly.
Well, I think a lot of things will move forward, whether smoothly or not, because of the U.S.'s ability and desire to be a nation of laws. And that will be very much in the forefront in this, after the revolution, if you will, after this uncertainty is dealt with. I think the first of next year is going to see a lot of lawsuits and a whole bunch of people from Portland and Seattle and New York and Chicago going, arr, 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 like an old dog, getting his butt kicked.
All right. This is a specific question, but I'll try it and throw it at you, Tim. I can't answer it, but it's from Jim Bannister, who's followed the channel for quite some time. Will China and Argentina snatching Bolivia from Brazil lead to the country splitting in the Creole Los Lands, gas-rich, and the Indian Highlands? I don't know anything about that.
No, it won't. I have. There are an awful lot of indigenous land claims and an awful lot of claims of various kinds against these countries that people are wanting to settle. I got a feeling they're probably going to be settled in the old-fashioned way, which is to say they're probably going to get machine gunned.
Never a dull moment.
Well, you know, it's that way down south of the border.
All right. Well, we have a question from Field Marshal Don Browning saying, I only just made it. Has Tim been behaving? I'll answer that. No.
I've been behaving just badly.
All right. Well, here's one, and I'll just stay out of this. I have my own opinions, but I'm constantly questioning them. I'm just going to deliver this straight to Tim. This is from Mr. Ixme. Hello. What is the tone of the relationship between Russia and China? Friends, enemies, friendly competitors, co-conspirators to bring down America? Your answer, Tim.
Enemies. I've heard nothing about Russia doing anything about its immense border with China as far as removing the automatic nuclear weapons that have been there since the 1960s. But then what do I know about such things?
Indeed. Indeed.
And what more do I know about the intricacies of Sino-Soviet politics, especially in today's world, in which Putin wants to be seen as a nice old avuncular kind of guy with one hand raised right over China's head to go thump.
Little bunny foo-foo hopping through the forest, picking up the field mice and thumping them on the head. I don't even remember where that damn song came from. Okay, so the basic idea is that China and Russia have been cooperating in some few ways, particularly under the previous pressure from the former administration in the United States, but that now that's beginning to peel apart because the nature of these tripartite politics is such that there's just so much more to gain for Russia from cooperating with the United States. So this is a little bit related in some respects. Actually directly related in a number of respects. This was from John Ski, the Mighty. It says, should the U.S. take Poland's offer of removing U.S. bases in Germany and put them in Poland? I believe they've already started that. What do both parties get out of this deal?
What does it look like? Poland gets its protection from the Warsaw Group,
right?
From Russia.
Germany gets a spanking economically.
At which case, Germany can go suck a fart.
And what about the tension conceivably this could create with Russia with U.S. troops moved that much closer?
Oh, I don't think it'll create any tension at all.
As long as we don't fuck with Kaliningrad, whatever, yeah.
Sure. And we won't. We're just going to be using that as a staging area if we ever have to.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Now, this is Bobby Blackout saying, what about Jeff Sessions? I think that this is a little bit of crowing. I'm not sure. Now, if anybody's missed it, I've said in the past that it looks like Tim and I were completely wrong about Jeff Sessions. Now, it's possible to hold out some hope that he'll be revealed as an ultra secret double undercover something. But the way he got slapped with his run again makes that seem less likely. So
yeah, it does.
My answer is it seems like it was a bad call. But Tim, do you want to answer the Bobby Blackout thing? What about Jeff Sessions?
Well, I would say that Mr. Sessions has tried everything in his power except crawling on his belly like a reptile to get back into Trump's good graces, and Trump said no. What can you say? It's a shame because he would have made an excellent whatever. He just fucked himself up when he went for the stuff with Attorney General.
Right. We got a guy, Harry White, saying Jeff is not deep state. He's a good man that lost his constitution or something along those lines. I didn't get the impression that he was deep state, and I didn't get the impression that he was trying to hurt Trump by recusing himself or whatever.
No.
So, yeah, I'm not dogging him. And he did, as I understand it, to what extent I do, he did a number of good things in his role as Attorney General. So there is that. Yeah, somebody just wandering in the ruins. Added Sessions was great on immigration. Okay, let me look here. We've got, about 10 minutes left here. Let's just grab a couple final questions. Let me see. I'm looking to see if there are any from old school peeps who I try to answer first, just because they've been around for a while. Okay, we got the Fred Yang guy. This is the guy who says you're frankly highly unlikely speculations. Says Tim, regarding empire/natural resources, wasn't Afghanistan largely about opium? It clearly wasn't about what it was purported to be about. I'm just going to jump in here, Tim, for a second.
Okay.
It's weird that the person who's saying that the speculations are unreliable or frankly somewhat ridiculous or whatever, watch the channel for a while, and you would have seen that Afghanistan is critical as an overland corridor from the east to the west that runs along the underbelly of Russia, and that China has been attempting to extend itself across that region for quite some time. And it's been a major element of the Great Game since the Brits were in there, the Russians are in there, the United States are in there, and as Tim often jokes, we're about to sell some slightly used maps in English, Russian, Cyrillic, and to the Chinese, so they can fuck about in that area, trying to have an overland route, because their ability to extend their supply lines that far with navies is really in question when they're up against a world superpower that's known for a projection of naval power. But is there anything you wanted to add about, Tim, empire/natural resources? Wasn't Afghanistan largely about opium? It clearly wasn't about what it purported to be about.
Opium was so minor, such a minor component.
That just seems like an extra way for intelligence services to make some more money.
Sure.
And to infiltrate other networks.
Mm-hmm. It's basically about China's expansionist and Russia's previous expansionist views. Russia, unlike China, has given up. China wants to continue. So I wish them all the luck in the world. They're gonna need it.
Well, we have one from John Goris here. Hello, sir. Says Ollie, I picked up a CD of Sabbath's Heaven and Hell. Haven't listened yet. Should I prep for disappointment? I like Mob Rules. I don't know, if you like Mob Rules, you probably like Heaven and Hell. It's got a couple okay songs on it. I love the album art. But to me, Black Sabbath stops with Ozzy Osbourne, except for a few songs with the Dio period that I like. I don't even like Technical Ecstasy much with Ozzy. Or what's the other one? Never Say Die. Yeah, Never Say Die and Technical Ecstasy. It's all sort of winding down, and I'm not really into it. So I don't know. Maybe you'll like it. Okay. I just put Tim through that. Okay, sorry, Tim.
It's all right. I'll live through it.
Looking for questions. Oosh Ouch says, Semigod, can you explain your logo zodiac? No. If you have 6 points equidistant on the perimeter of a circle, there are, if you leave out rotations of the figure, there are only 12 ways to connect all 6 of those dots with a single line returning to the original starting point. And so I use that as a non-religious, non-metaphysically, in a way that doesn't have any traditional associations. I use it as a way of kind of revealing sets, understanding cultures. Each group or person, there's a certain number of ways that the same set of features can be understood, a certain number of ways, a limited number of ways that the dots can be connected. And so I use those 6 dots in 12 ways. Yes, it's reminiscent of the zodiac, but the idea is that there are a certain number of ways that a person can connect the dots and read the signs. and that the possibilities and determinations ultimately are, to a certain extent, fixed within the constraints of whatever system is under consideration. That's too long an answer, but there's a brief one.
Just didn't have enough time to give it, huh?
Well, I didn't want to just be talking the whole time. We got you on here. Okay, John Ski says, Semyagog, I hate to ask this, but why have they not attempted to take out POTUS, God forbid? Do you have any thoughts on that, Tim?
Sure, because POTUS has got himself private security in addition to the Secret Service. And they're real good.
And I would have to guess, I mean, aren't the Secret Service actually real good too?
Sure, but you can't trust them.
Really?
I don't trust anybody.
Well, there's that. I mean, but you would say that Trump running some sort of private arrangement with his own people at the same time. I mean, shit, is he even allowed to have his own private security at the same time
sir.
too?
He's allowed to have whatever he wants.
Really?
Yeah.
I imagine that would be the first thing, because of, OPSEC and all kinds of other shit that they would try to shut down.
Mm-hmm. Well, they try. But there isn't any way to fight a real live POTUS. You may have seen the guys walking around wearing long coats recently.
Maybe. Just more room to carry more shit.
More room to carry different shit.
Yeah, and I did notice he seems tense as hell. I mentioned it in a previous thing. One of his rallies, you could hear a jet going by overhead, and there's no way that Trump doesn't know that, like, they can, pop your fucking cherry from, a drone distance without anybody seeing it come until the last instant. And so you hear this whooshing overhead, and you see Trump like, and you see him covered up. He turns back. He's like, oh, it must be an F-35. You can't hear it. He had that look on him, like, He knows that it's all down to the wire right now. Yeah. And he's willing to do it anyway. So, props to him.
There you go.
All right. Well, we are, let's see here. Keep getting this question about something having to do with Ed Buck. I think he's the Democratic donor who was constantly fucking black guys and injecting them full of shit, and they kept dying. Good friend, a bunch of the California politicians, and Clinton as well. He's asking some question about Ed Buck versus Ron Jeremy. That's the porn star. Ed Buck versus Ron Jeremy. Spy versus spy leads to war with China. Do you have any idea what that's about?
None at all, except that to me it matters not in the least.
Well, yeah, I don't know enough about it either. Now we've got about 3 minutes left.
All right.
In this closing section, I'm not seeing any. Johnsky says, speaking of porn, where has Tim's right hand been all this time? He's been tubing. He's been tubing on the river with a beer in his hand. All right. So yeah, I'm sorry. I couldn't
on the river.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. Rolling. All right.
I never liked rolling it very much. That kind of left me cold.
What, that rolling on a river? I don't know. I just didn't.
More tubing.
Fucking tubing. Okay, with the tiny amount of time we have left, I guess we can skip the thing about you laughing at the end. I'll just wrap normally. What about this one? We'll try this one, Tim. A last question coming in just through the gate at the last possible moment before we lock the shop up. Deride the Tide asks, how does Tim's theory about the Mahdi in Central Asia tie into his thoughts on a resurrection of Zoroastrianism? I'm not positive that Tim advanced that it would be a resurrection of Zoroastrianism, but otherwise I think there's sort of one and the same idea, aren't they?
Well, not really. Zoroastrianism has a different understanding.
Yeah, its day is past.
Yeah.
But it has its reflections, as Corbin so neatly summarized, with Shi'ism. But other than that, I don't even see your story as having been.
It wasn't. let's just say that the Mahdi coming out now will participate to some degree with Zoroastrianism, but only to a minor degree. He'll be very well versed in the Quran and in making things happen. He will bring together both of the theories of the Quran and of Islam. In fact, he'll bring together more than both of them. But that's for another day.
Well then, before we close, I do want to suggest that John Gores do a cartoon about Tubin. I think his peculiar style of heads being blown off and skeletons and the rest might lend itself to the animation of a multiplayer Zoom call with a psychopath jerking off. Anyway, just an idea, throwing that out there. Not that he was asking for suggestions. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I appreciate it very, very much. It has been my pleasure to speak to you. Thank you, Tim, for having been willing to talk to everyone. We will be back soon. Yeah, within I'll be back before a week. Tim will be back in around a week. Yeah, and there's a lot of excitement going on. I might just do a stream after the next debate, depending on what goes down there. I expect to see some sparks fly. We'll see. Perhaps even Tim might have some time. But yeah, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, one and all. We will be back again with you soon. In the meantime, I am Semiagog, and I am out.